This is Rostra, the St. Theodore Guerin Junior Classical League podcast, where we bring the lessons of classical study into the light for the benefit of all.
Welcome back to another episode of Rostra. Got Sawyer Holman with us today, repeat guest, and Sawyer, talk about one of the most famous battles in history. What battle is this?
It's the Battle of Actium.
Battle of Actium. So, first of all, why did you pick this? And then talk to us about who was involved in this battle.
I picked it because Roman battles are very interesting, just like in general. They're really pretty cool to learn about. And then it was a naval battle, like in the sea. I think it was
Ionian. Yeah. So, first of all, yeah, there's something cool about Roman battles, Roman army, all that good stuff. It's exciting. It's involved in the history and that sort of thing. And this was a naval battle. So the Romans, they fought at sea, certainly. I mean, good grief, you're in the Mediterranean. You're kind of going to have a naval force. We think of them mostly as a land-based force. You think about the soldiers and the centurions and all those guys in the red crested helmets and shields and all that kind of stuff. But they certainly had a naval force as well. As you say, a naval battle. Between whom?
It was Octavian's fleet, his army, and Mark Antony's army.
Octavian and Mark Antony. So give us a little bit about who these guys are. I think these are names that some people will have heard of. Certainly I think Mark Antony people may have heard of, especially from Shakespeare's play. Julius Caesar, he figures into that prominently. So just kind of quickly, who was Octavian, who was Mark Antony?
So Octavian was almost like the adopted son of Caesar in a way. And Mark Antony was like the top general in Caesar's army. And they were almost like fighting for almost the master of the Roman world, almost like...
It's not almost, I think that's exactly what they were fighting for, and you nailed it exactly. Yeah, Octavian was actually just in bloodline, Caesar's nephew. But then Caesar did adopt him. So exactly, Caesar's adopted son, so that he would have an heir. And Mark Antony, honestly, Caesar's friend, top general in Caesar's army. And for a time, these two guys were somewhat allied after the assassination of Julius Caesar. The two of them together went out after Caesar's assassins. But there's that old expression, you can't have two roosters in the hen house. It just leads to fighting. They're going to go. One of them's going to go for dominance, and that's exactly what happened, as you said, with these two guys, kind of fighting for supremacy here. So you say it turns out to be a naval battle. Tell us a little bit about how it went down and what happened.
Well, it went down. It was obviously a naval battle in the sea, but it was on 31 BC, and it was in the peninsula, but it was there were a bunch of ships, and they were almost equal in number. Mm-hmm. It was 40 to 35, but the troops were just 40,000 to 30,000 or so. It was pretty equal battle in general, but Mark Antony ended up winning. He he defeated Octavian's fleet. I'm not 100% sure how the battle went down. But.
So what? Honestly, the way the Romans fought from ships was basically ships were floating land. All right, so it's still a lot of times almost a land-based sort of battle, where you get close enough to flinging stuff, right? You can hurl whether it's rocks or flaming balls of pitch or something, shooting arrows across the decks to each other. Obviously, if you can get close enough and board the other ship, then you can fight hand-to-hand with swords. And then you also can ram the ships. And the Roman warships tended to have a long part that was just below the surface of the water that extended in front of the ship. So as it plowed through the water, there's really a part that's below the water line that's sticking out in front of the ship. And when you ram into another ship, that pokes a hole below their water line and causes them to sink. So a lot of ways the fighting can go down there. So yeah, just back and forth again, pretty evenly matched. Do you know what happened after that, or kind of how that then played out?
Well, I know that Mark Antony became kind of the leader of the Romans, the Roman world in general, after that battle, because they were fighting for almost Caesar's spot. But I read a little bit about Cleopatra.
Yes, Cleopatra.
And how, he was kind of fighting, not for her, but there was something going on there that he was fighting for, in a way.
There was certainly, and the thing about Cleopatra, you can't separate Cleopatra from her area. So she was Egyptian, exactly right. And so Egypt to Rome is very comparable to what, in a lot of ways, the Middle East is to the United States of America. In terms of, we get so much of something we desperately need from that area. For us, it's oil. For them, it was grain for bread. And so Egypt provided a lot of grain. So you've got a strategic alliance there. Antony seems to have fallen in love with Cleopatra. There seems to have been a relationship there as well. And so that got kind of, how should we say, a little bit involved, a little bit tricky, because here's this Roman guy who's involved with a foreign queen, which is typically not good. On the other hand, this is an ally. And so there was some stuff going on there. Keep going with that. Where did that all go from there?
Well, Cleopatra, obviously you said she was the queen, but it started to become a little bit of a conflict.
Yeah.
Because the Egyptians were not too happy about this alliance between them. But there was almost like a Cold War I read about between them.
Yeah.
There wasn't actual battling yet.
Right.
But there was a lot of conflict. It's almost almost mental conflict almost.
And you make a good point. The Egyptians didn't like it. They didn't like it that their queen was involved with a Roman. The Romans didn't like it that one of their guys was involved with a foreign queen. And so ultimately that all went south, and you can go read about it in Shakespeare, go read about that elsewhere. Do you remember or know who Octavian became?
No.
Octavian became the first Roman Emperor Augustus. So his name was Octavian once he got adopted by Julius Caesar. But then after all this stuff settled down, and once the thing with Antony and Cleopatra fell apart, really Octavian then was the one who rose out of all that to rule over everything. And then in 27 BC, just 4 years after Actium, the Senate voted and gave Octavian the title of Augustus. And then we see him today as the first Roman emperor. So hugely important battle. Again, one of not that many well-known Roman naval battles, but also then for the conflict that it produced, and then ultimately leading into the establishment of the Roman Empire. Anything else you think that you found about this battle that is key stuff? As you said, battles are kind of cool. They're cool to read about. So anything else that's neat that you think needs to be shared? I
thought it was interesting how this battle was like a decade of conflict that kind of grew up to this battle. So it was almost like the all or nothing in a way.
Yes, very much. And a lot of people, you study, say, the American Civil War, a lot of people focus on Gettysburg. Well, there were a lot of other battles besides Gettysburg, right? There have been a lot of things that led up to Gettysburg. So exactly, you're right. There was a lot of conflict leading up to it. This is kind of the culminating event, and that's then therefore the one that we focus on. So, yeah, well, good stuff. Sawyer, thank you. This is a good episode. It's good to have you back on the show, and I think folks are going to enjoy this one.
Thank you for listening to Rostra. You may check out all our episodes on Spotify and follow us on social media at GuerinJCL. That's at GuerinJCL.